Okay. Wait, start now. You said that a lead wouldn't knock me out. So.
No, it won't.
Well, that's not the sound. Sorry. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Singing and praying with my mind stayed on spirit. Singing and praying with my mind stayed on spirit. Singing and praying with my mind stayed on spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
Woo! Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
We have Leo Brody in the house. He'll also be our speaker today. We have Mary Ellen and Laura taking care of our hostessing, and everybody is to help with the spick and span. We have Master Mark Swink for technology. And I'm your platform person, Ron Savage.
Hey, Ron.
Hello. So I want to welcome everybody and thank you for your great music. And so we're going to do the heart song here in a second. And if you're new today to Unity of Bremerton, we welcome you in the spirit of love. And we want you to know no matter where you are in your journey of faith, you are always welcome here. We know that the world is a better place when we all are willing to share our hearts. We give you a heart when you first come here as a symbol of the steadfast spirit that lives within each of us, and we ask you to carry this symbol as a member of the Red Heart Fellowship. Let it be a reminder that love of God is always with you, and to share your heart wherever you go. The Red Heart, as a symbol of fellowship in the world, can spread love one heart at a time. And let's start that movement here.
I send my love over mountains. I send my love
those of you who are joining us on the internet for the first time, we want you to know that our speakers are different every week. So please join us again at least 2 times so that you can see the variety. This candle represents the divine light within each of us. This is our Christ candle. Now, we'll read the mission statement.
We are a loving community supporting our mutual quest for
Spiritual truth and our invocation.
There is one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life. God the good omnipotence.
Now we'll take a short time for handshakes and hugs. No heavy hugging, we don't want to break anybody.
Sorry, you put me in an airplane spin today.
I was down at the park yesterday. You're back again. Yay!
Miss Ann.
Anyway, I gotta get your number.
Good to see you. Oh, it's good to be seen.
I had it.
Are you done nursing your patients?
But she hasn't opened it up yet.
It's a pretty major vaccination.
Right in front of you.
She's my friend.
She is.
I don't have a kitchen and a bathroom. Right
You don't send a letter to your kitchen, no. Rise up, rise up, oh my soul. Rise up, oh my soul, let spirit go. Rise up, oh my soul. Rise up, oh my soul. Show me the kingdom wherever I go. Feel the city everywhere I walk. Feel my tongue every time I talk. Make people love God. Make it strong with every word. Tell them see that heaven is all around. Fill my heart with the courage to play. Free my mind from yesterday.
word for today is, of course, a blessing for fathers. I honor all father figures in my prayers. Today is an opportunity to recognize and honor the fatherly influences in my life, whether their role is a parent, mentor, teacher, or coach. Their encouragement and guidance gave me the gift of believing in myself. My prayers also include fathers and stepfathers who are new to the role, learning the importance, dedication, and patience it takes. I bless the role models who are helping to build life skills and live by example. Whether changing a diaper, telling a story, attending school functions, or teaching how to ride a bike, at the heart of all that matters is love. God's presence is active in their lives. I pray they live in this awareness and enjoy the experience of watching children discover who they are and what they are capable of achieving. From Isaiah 41, verse 10, I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you. Today I honor all father figures in my prayers, and God bless us all.
So I invite you to join me with I Am as God Created Me. There's gestures that go with this song if you want. So how's it go? You stand up and you go, I ask God. In the light, in the love, you go, in the light, in the love, in the glory, in the light, in the love. Yeah, you can make up the rest. So let's see that another part. 3, 4. In the light, in the love, in the glory, in the light, in the love, in the glory, in the light, in the love, in the glory.
Okay. Unity happens. On June 23rd, we're going to have Michael Bolgar here with musician Aaron McFadden. And on the 30th, they call it Flashback Sunday. I don't know what that means, so sorry.
You'll have to come to find out.
Disco.
I was in the 60s. I didn't do that flashback stuff.
You're not that old, folks.
No, well, yeah, I'm old enough. I'm just going to do that flashback stuff. Anyway, we have A Course in Miracles on Thursday from 7 to 8, and it'll be right here. So that's the stuff coming up the rest of this month. And we're going to have some special music from Leo.
This is All Good by Ricky Byers. This got taller than that.
Is that wrong?
That's good, that's good. Okay, cool. So, I'm Leo Brody. I'm really glad to be back here.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I need to make, it's not a confession really, but it's just like a reality check. I am just a little, not loopy, but I don't know, a little, because I had a hernia surgery last Friday, not 2 days ago, but a week before that. And I'm still in pain, so I generously was gifted with an Aleve just before I came up. So it's kind of like I'm a little pain-free. Maybe that's what it is. Combined with, yeah, right. Anyway, I have an interesting talk for you today. Don't I always have an interesting talk today? Okay. So, well, first of all, how many fathers do we have in the room? Really? Okay, well, happy Father's Day. I'm one myself. 3, sort of. I'm not sure how you not know. You are, okay. I guess some people don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's a real gift to be a father. And to have a father. That whole relationship is pretty amazing. But that's not what my talk is about today. My talk today it's called No One is Against You, and I'll explain what that means. Because you might go, oh yeah, sure, really? But, I was starting with this cliche that's the idea, when life gives you lemons, what do you make?
Lemonade.
Lemonade, yeah. See, everybody knows that cliche. And in some ways it's kind of goofy because you can't always make lemonade out of anything, or you can't always make the equivalent of lemonade out of whatever the situation is. But there is some truth to it, and we're kind of going to go beyond that, but let's just start with the lemonade idea. The first thing about it is that you have to acknowledge the fact that you don't want to eat lemons. I mean, the whole point of the thing is, what can you do? You can't just eat a lemon. I mean, some people do, but it's pretty sour is the problem. But you have two options when you're handed lemons. One is you could maybe try to put on a brave face and say, oh, okay, this is fine. This is good. God sent me these lemons for a reason, so I'm just going to sit here and eat this lemon. And that's not really great. That's just kind of a spiritual bypass or something like that. You're accepting something that isn't really your good. So we don't want to do that. But on the other hand, the other option that you have would be you could say, well, these are horrible. I can't eat these. I can't do anything with this. And you sort of throw it away. You're rejecting or denying or running away from or resisting. You're resisting the opportunity to do something with a lemon. So the whole point of the cliche is really that if you reframe the lemon and you say, well, what can I do with this that would be a tasty treat? Well, it takes a little sugar, or some honey or something, but the point is that you can make something really good out of something that would otherwise be sour and not pleasant. And again, not every situation lends itself to that kind of an approach, but the point is that you're making a shift of your mind and not saying, you're not either saying, I can't do anything with this, and you're not trying to pretend that it's good by itself. You're making a shift in your mind and say, okay, there may be something here beyond the obvious. And isn't that what all creativity is about? All ingenuity is like somebody going, this doesn't seem like a good situation, but many times in permaculture they say the solution is in the problem is the solution. So very often the problem itself gives you the solution to what you need. And then again with life, this is like how a pessimist sort of rationalizes optimism a little bit. Sometimes we go back and forth, right? Sometimes if we feel grumpy, we say, why is everything like this? But I had an experience where life, it seemed like something really bad happened, but it turned out to be really good. I'm sure you've all had that kind of experience. I was working at Microsoft as first a contractor and then a full-time employee, and they had a reorganization. I was really well appreciated and really did good work, and everybody liked me on the team, but then they had a reorganization. Sometimes that means you report to somebody different, and then everything changes, and all of a sudden I was not considered to be a team player anymore. Everything that I was doing before that was liked and appreciated previously was all of a sudden like, oh, that you're not a team player. Anyway, I ended up getting a fantastic job at another company after that had a lot of growth to it, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity at all at Microsoft. So it was one of those cases where you go with it and you find out that there's a lot more to what you expected. But this idea of reframing is important in our relationships. So one of my daughters, and this comes into being a father here, one of my daughters is just completely, or she goes through periods anyway where she's completely obsessed with her video games. Right? So she sits in her room all day and comes out to eat, and then we're all at the table, and all of a sudden she's gone. It's like, where'd she go? She went back to her room to get back on the game. And it seems to parents, me and her mother, that may not be unhealthy, and it's like something we don't want her to do, just spend her whole life doing that. Because it seems antisocial. It seems like, oh, well, she should be out with, she should be out hanging with friends and stuff like that. And she really, anytime we would try to get her to stop playing or put any restrictions on that, she got really, really resistant to it. And I eventually realized that there was more to this gaming thing that I just didn't understand, because she's actually on the chat with her friends all over the world, like for hours at a time. And so she's playing these games, but it's like, it's not so much the game as the connection that she's making with people in London and in Mexico, and it's like, holy moly, this kid's getting around in a virtual sense. So I guess what happened was I reframed the situation. I started to see what she was doing more from her perspective. And so from her perspective, we were just being clueless. Think of a word of someone you don't like, Yeah. Meanies, let's say that. And so I just started to show that I valued what she was doing. Now, I mean, that's not to say that I was wrong and she's right. It's to say that a much healthier relationship to have, for me, with my daughter, is to at least acknowledge the meaning in what she's doing. Does that make sense? That she's got something that she's doing valuable, and she values it. And the fact that she values it and it's part of her, otherwise I'm separating myself from her. And I'm telling her that she's not good enough. And that's not at all the message I want to give. So it's a question of reframing. I think that's another way to look at this kind of situation. And along the line of reframing, when I think about that, this is one of the experiences that was kind of another father story in the opposite direction. Once, when my son, who's now 37, when he was about maybe 10, he and I went down to Joshua Tree National Park in Southern California, and to camp and stuff like that. And we went with some other friends. And there's these kind of hills they're just like pure boulders. It's boulders, like huge boulders like this. And I thought it's kind of fun to get out there and climb. I'm not an athletic person, but it's kind of fun to just get out there and try to climb up one of these things. But my son would just like jump from one boulder to the other, like maybe from a higher one down to a lower one that was 10 feet between them. And there was some risk that if he fell, he could hurt himself, break an arm or something like that. But he just did it. And he said, "You can do it." And I was like, well, I was up there, right? Looking down at him, and he just did it. And he was like, well, he has gravity on his side, But the truth is, when I saw him do it, I said, if he can do it, I can do it. And so, of course, I was a little younger then, but I did it. And again, it's a reframing of a situation, because that, to me, if I hadn't seen him do it, I would have said, that is humanly impossible. But it was clearly not humanly impossible. It was humanly possible. You see what I'm saying? It's a situation where something was going on in my mind that I could never do this, or it couldn't be done even. And yet when I reframed it, then it became possible, and I actually was able to do it. So if you start with, we talk about positive thinking a lot in New Thought, and the one thing that I know for sure that you can just prove beyond a shadow of a doubt is the opposite, is that if you have negative thinking, if you think you can't do something, then you can't do it. You see that all the time. And that was an example. If I was thinking I couldn't jump from one higher boulder to another boulder, lower boulder, but it was possible. So, so what I want to get into a little more deeply is the cases where you get lemons, but there isn't the equivalent, the metaphorical equivalent of lemonade that you can do with it. In other words, it's just a bad situation. It's not a situation that anyone would want. And that happens, right? It's not a situation that you can say there's a bright side to it. But the point of this talk is no one is against you, which means that the universe is not against you. And so this is where you're taking it into a spiritual level. It's not just a matter of a good recipe with honey and sugar or something like that. So there's this saying. Do you hear this saying in your church? The universe is in a conspiracy for my good. The universe is in a conspiracy for my good. I love that. Because again, it's like, well, that doesn't, I like that idea, but how come all these bad things happen to me if the universe is in a conspiracy for my good? So I'm going to share with you, my own theory about life. I get to do that because I have the mic for a while. Now, this is not like New Thought signed off on dogma. It's not anything that the Fillmore said. It's not anything that Ernest Holmes and Science of Mind said. But I think it fits in, and it works for me. So I'm going to share it with you, and maybe it'll work for you. You can take it or leave it. But I believe that we are spiritual beings. In a human form, right? So we're not really, by fundamental nature, human. We're having a human experience. The fundamental truth of who we are is that we're consciousness. And there's only one consciousness, which means that we're all the same consciousness. But we're playing as if we're different people here. We're playing as if we're separate people. Why would we do that? If we're conscious beings, why would we choose to take form and pretend to be separate people? Why would God do that to us? Why would God put us into these situations where we have all these conflicts all the time? Well, actually, I think God is us. God is the cumulative whole of all consciousness. And so when I say God did it, I mean we did it. We choose to come here. This is my belief, that we choose to suit up in human form. Why do we do that? Well, because it's like a simulator where pilots learn to fly the planes and they can crash the plane and not die. Except you can play a video game where you crash your car and you die, but you can die like 5 times. You can die forever. I mean, you keep dying, you know. Then you go play a different game when you get tired of dying in that game. I think that's really what we've got here. We've got a situation where we come here in form and we're playing a kind of game, not just for fun though, but it's for our spiritual growth. The purpose of our taking form in human life is to grow spiritually. And we do that not just by always having great things happen to us, but by having things that we have to, conflicts, things that we have to work through, things that we have to find our way to love through. So I think the whole point is love, learning to love, and being in situations where we need to love. I don't know, and I don't think this is the only game either. This is just, again, my wild extrapolation. If we were having a beer some evening and just philosophizing, I don't think, personally, well, first of all, I don't think that we only get to come here once. It seems like such a waste. I don't want to always be this guy, you know? I mean, this is just one million version of all the infinite possibilities. And I also don't think that this is necessarily the only place people can come, that souls can come, right? I'm sure there's all kinds of different universes where there are different lessons. And so that's just kind of my premise. And it explains a lot of this, what I'm talking about. When we say the universe is in a conspiracy for my good, that's the premise of it, that I'm here to grow spiritually. Therefore, whatever happens to me, whether I think in my mind it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's actually pointless unless I have a chance to learn to love more and become more my divine, magnificent self, which we all are. And by doing that, we all evolve. We collectively evolve in the same way that biological life evolves in its way. our consciousness evolves in that way, by learning to love. So, that's why we get, well, I had thought of the analogy of football, for example. Like, okay, this is a game, right? And the game is not about, well, we think about the goal of the game is to get your ball and run down the field and cross the goal line. But if it was just about running over a goal line with a ball, then you wouldn't have two teams that were fighting each other. Everybody would just get out there and the ball and run over the goal line. And there wouldn't be any skill involved particularly, and there wouldn't be any development, there wouldn't be any need for training, that kind of thing. But we're here and we have opposition, but that's on purpose. That's what makes it the game. That's what makes the game work. So it's kind of a strange analogy, but if you can think of, I'm asking you to think of like a reframed situation where you have something really bad happens, or it's not a good thing. It's not something that you can just turn around and add sugar to make it into something palatable. But I'm suggesting that it might actually be, no matter how bad it seems in this world, that it's here for your spiritual growth. So on a higher level, you're gonna get something out of that. So that's what we're looking into, and this is not easy. It's a real challenge because I'm going through a lot of stuff right now, and it's hard for me with all these things I'm going through to go, oh, this is, what is it? It isn't obvious, but I think that's the work, and so I'm inviting us all to kind of consider how we can look at that. I forgot to start my timer, so I have no idea where I am with time.
You're fine.
Oh yeah, I know, but how much time do I have? I was supposed to. Oh, well. We're good. So when we get back to that statement about life is a conspiracy for our good, I think that's because that's the game we're playing. And it's on a spiritual level, that's true. So this talk, I read this book recently, and it's called The Eye of the Storm. And the analogy here is, well, it's spelled with an I, like me, rather than the eye of the storm. This is the me, or the eye of the storm. And his idea is, in this book, it's called, the subtitle is Embracing Conflict and Creating Peace. So the idea is that when we experience conflict, it's like turmoil, and it's like the outer edge of the hurricane. And people die in that. And it's two forces opposing each other that create these hurricanes. I'm not a meteorologist, but that's what I understand. And if you stay on the outside where that conflict is, you can be battered and torn. But the invitation is to move to your center. And in the hurricane, the center of the storm is actually a place of balance, where those forces are balanced, and so it's calm. And so in human nature, we tend to be afraid to turn within. It's scary, let me put it that way. It's easier somehow to stay in conflict. It's easier, for example, if something's opposing me, to feel I'm just going to resist that, or I'm going to fight back, or I'm going to run away, or something like that. But the idea of this book and this title is that if we can turn within, and we can brave our way through to examine what's really going on, what's going on within ourselves, in our center, then we can become one in the center of the spirit. And in many cases, then we can be at peace. And it brings healing not only to ourselves, but to the others involved. We can't necessarily change the storm, though, but we can bring peace to ourselves. And we can usually evolve spiritually, which, again, as I think, is the point. So this is, I'm just going to read a little quote from the book here at the early pages. It says, "No one is against you. You may not believe it now. You may have a lifetime of evidence to the contrary. But until you realize that the entire universe is for you, you may never experience your wholeness and true worth. So I think that's an idea that's worth examining. So the question is, what if every time there's a conflict in your situation, a conflict in your life, anytime there's a conflict in your life, and it could be an enemy, like a person that seems to be opposing you in some way, it could be an illness, it could be a job situation, a romantic situation, whatever it is, all these situations that we consider to be an enemy, what if all of those are just calling you to a greater sense of who you are? An opportunity to discover, well, what's mine in this? And this is not to say that if you have a bad situation, this is not to say that, oh, what did you do in your consciousness that made that happen? That's a blaming, fake way of being spiritual. What did I do to create this thing? Well, what you did was you decided to come here to grow spiritually. So good on you for taking on a challenge. I wrote a book about marriage, actually, a few years ago, where his main point about marriage was, nobody's good at this. The fact that you're in a marriage and you're trying to make it work is good on you. And you should be proud of that. You should both be proud of that, because it's not easy to merge your life with somebody, you know? And it reveals all those things that you want to work on. All the conflicts that come up in a marriage are things you want to let go of. You know, there are things in you that want to let go of. So the marriage is just two people. You know what I mean? It ties in with this, I think, really well. So it gives us an opportunity to grow. Now, this is a quote that in the book, he has this quote, but he's quoting somebody else. But I thought this was really cool, so I'm going to read this to you. The future, so the question, he's talking about how predictable we are as human beings. He says, the future can only be regarded as probabilities floating on the sea of infinite possibilities. So we're predictable, but it's not because we're fated to follow some trajectory. What makes us so predictable is that attention and awareness continually reframe the present moment in the context of past influences. Consciousness is poured into the creative framework of attention and awareness to set in motion the forces that organize the manifest universe. So if we have experiences in life and we decide life is a certain way, we decide that people treat us badly, or that I'll never be loved, or whatever we decide, then we keep reframing everything that way, and we keep recreating that situation, because we're pouring our consciousness and attention and awareness into proving that we're right about that, whether we know it or not. So we are so darn predictable. You know, we just keep getting into the same patterns, but we don't have to if we realize that we're doing it because it's not because life is predictable, it's because we're predictable, and we don't have to be predictable, because we just can change, we can reframe. So that's what the idea is. I think that's a really cool quote. It means we have to shift our attention and what we're aware of, and shift it into being the gift, or looking for the gift, finding the gift within us, knowing that God is present. It takes some work to do that. It's not easy to do that. So when there's someone who irritates you, they're irritating you. They wouldn't be irritating you, really. They wouldn't get under your skin unless there was something that you felt was a lack in yourself. So, in a way, even though you wish they wouldn't be irritating you, you can think of it as a gift, because then it reminds you of, well, why would I let somebody get under my skin like that? What is it in me that feels like I'm so easily offended, you know, or taking it personally when it's really about them? So so a situation that I'm having right now that I'm still working on, and this is a real kind of trivial example, but I have the situation that's really annoying me right now is that I have set up a home recording studio over the years, and I've recorded my albums there, and in the last year or so I've really wanted to get other people in there to record so that I could just share it. I mean, it's like a lot of good stuff, and I've spent a lot of time learning how to do it. And there's a lot of reasons for this, and I won't go into the whole thing, but I'm feeling like I'm feeling like people are just not wanting to come. And I'm feeling almost, I'm taking it a little personally that nobody's coming to my studio. And, right, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's just kind of like you have a party and there are not many people that come or something like that. You know, it's that feeling. And I'm realizing that the situation there is really, the whole reason I want to do that is because I love music and I want to play it with other people. It's like creating a cooperative environment. And the truth is, I'm really not, I've done all the technology, but what's really needed is a lot more than just the technology. It's a connection with other people. So I have to really go outside of my comfort zone to connect with musicians in the area and that sort of thing. And that's I think, something I need to do as a spiritual step. So there's a spiritual component into why isn't this working the way I thought it would? Well, it has to do with me shifting my, what I'm putting my attention on. So, there are 4 things that he talks about in this book that you can do, and they're really pretty simple. They're just hard to remember to do. They're hard to do it because it's much easier to stay in conflict. It's much easier to stay with wanting to be right. As long as I'm resisting this situation, I'm convincing myself that I'm right and they're wrong, or the situation is bad or whatever. As long as I stay there, I'm not going to move into that center. I'm not going to see the blessing in it. So the 4 things are this. First, look in the mirror with love. So he uses the word mirror there because the situation can be a mirror for me. Whatever this situation is about, it can be an opportunity for me to say, well, why is that affecting me the way it is? If I were connected to spirit, if I were connected to my divine nature, then somebody could say something petty about me, or be mean to me, or even cheat me, and I wouldn't feel like it's robbing me of anything that matters. So if I do feel like, if I'm mad, then it's because I'm not seeing the big picture. And so it's a wake-up call. Classic example, and he uses this in the book, someone cuts me off on the freeway. And there's a little bit of component of fear that I think we react to, like, we're angry because we're afraid, but we're also angry because what right do they have to get in front of me? Who do they think they are? Blah, blah, blah. And a way to reframe that, since you don't know who that person is, you don't know what's going on in their mind, what if you consider that man is driving his pregnant wife to the hospital because she's in labor? It's like, if I knew that, then I would say, of course, let's go ahead, I wouldn't be all upset. So the point is just, I can decide how I react, and I wouldn't be in conflict unless I thought that that they were taking something from me that I was lacking. And if I don't believe in lack, I don't believe there's any part of me that isn't whole, then I wouldn't be reacting that way. And therefore, it's an opportunity for me to see, oh gosh, I'm bleeding. There's a wound in me, there's a hole. If I can see that I got a gaping hole, I can, what's the word? Stem the I didn't mean to get graphic, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, if you don't know that you're bleeding, you can't stop the wound. If you do know it, you do recognize it, it's an opportunity to heal yourself. I didn't expect to make that analogy, but that's the idea. So there you go. The mirror in the situation is good for me. It's not against me. It's for me. The second thing you can do that he says is make it mean that it's good. This is the same idea as reframing. So you give the situation meaning that you don't originally see that it has. So we are meaning-making machines. We tend to do that just psychologically. Whatever is going on, we tend to extrapolate what's happening. We think of motives. We do this all the time. Oh, I bet what they're really doing. Well, I bet what they really were doing is this. In fact, I don't know if I should tell the story, but when I came in, Mark was dealing with the fact that somebody had been in here, like Goldilocks, and used the video system when we weren't here. And so he was like, I bet they came in here on a graduation, and he had a whole story about what exactly was going on. So we don't know if that's true or not, but the point is we do make meaning out of situations. I do it all the time. So we have to know the difference between the story and what really happened. So if we're going to make meaning, since we do that naturally, let's make up a good story. Let's make up a story that works for our benefit. So make sure it's make sure that the story is the universe is conspiring for my benefit. And then the third thing is, the way we can make it have meaning is by blessing the person or the situation. Blessing it just means seeing the good in it and knowing that there is a power for good in it. And that's a hard thing to do if you're really feeling like someone's antagonistic towards you. How can you get to the point where you can bless them? Well, unless you can get to the point where you can bless them, that's not to say just sit and make it okay. Again, we're not trying to turn lemons into something that we can just gobble down and pretend that we like it. We're talking about reframing it, and blessing it, finding some good in it, finding whatever that good is, just even if it's just to show me what I need to do. The third thing is do the right thing. And that means letting go of where I feel justified in being right and caring more about doing the right thing than being right. So it's a question of letting go. Having been a father multiple times, I know that there are situations where I have felt betrayed by my children, and I have betrayed my children. And all of these are opportunities to know if we can look into the situation, like in what way did I feel like they betrayed me? What was I expecting? What did I do that maybe they wouldn't have done what they did if I hadn't done what I did? You know, it's all opportunity to explore. And what could I do differently? And then the fourth thing is set yourself and your enemy free. And that means you pray for them. So after you bless them, you pray for them, which just means you really know good for them. You in your mind, you know that there's a good outcome for them. And again, it's not accepting what's wrong. It's knowing, it's turning to the higher, turning to God, turning to heaven to know the higher truth. So when you see yourself holistically, then these things that seem like conflicts and enemies, they can be turned around to being friends, to being working for your good. And can you imagine being in that place? It seems hard to imagine being in that place, but if you could just go through your life going, thank you. Thank you. So try that on. Take even the news. If the news triggers you, whatever, just look at it as a way. I know that's really hard. Look at it as a way to explore what is that doing in me that I don't need. What is that doing in me? What emotional reaction is that setting off in me that I can let go of? It's awakening to the gifts that we have to share. And we are at the center of our storm. We are in the calm. We create that calm by moving to the center. So let's move into prayer. On Father's Day, I am grateful to the one we sometimes call the Father, sometimes call the Mother. It represents all these things, that source, that one spirit, that wholeness, that unity of consciousness. That is the one truth that not only unites us, but that is us. All good comes from that one source. And there is nothing but the good in that source. Anything that's not that source, anything that doesn't seem to be good, is only not good in our projection and our interpretation. And it's an opportunity for us to be solid in our faith to know that we are divine beings. We know that we can use that situation to grow and to love. Because, as the Beatles said, all there is love. And that means there's nothing that can be against us. And there's no way that I can be, when I'm being myself, that's other than loving. I am fundamentally love. You are fundamentally love. Love is the high truth of all it is. I accept that, and I'm grateful for this truth. I'm grateful for this knowing. I'm grateful to be able to walk out into the world with these reminders, being able to let go of the immediate knee-jerk reaction that I'm being attacked, to let go of the sense that I need to prove myself right, just to let go, not resist, but to see the good. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
This is a song by Daniel Newman. Did I? You fly? Oh, okay. All right. Life is not about heartbreak or hunger or need. It's not about sacrifice that leaves us to bleed. There's something more important that we're bound to know. 'Cause whatever we do and wherever we go, it's all about love. It's all about love. Just open your heart, love fills it up. It's all about love. Love is the miracle of a newborn child. Love is that someone makes your heart go wild. And however you feel it, it's all the same thing. It's the feeling within you that makes you wanna sing. It's all about love. It's all about love. Just open your heart, love fills it up. It's all about love. When it seems your world is overflowing with pain, when you don't remember the sky without rain, just hold on. Help is on the way, bringing a perfect new world. A bright new day. It's all about love. It's all about love. Just open your heart, love fills it up. It's all about love. It's all about love.
As you're preparing your tithes and love offerings today, think about how blessed you are. And as you're writing that check or giving your gift, send out blessings. After tithing, if you want, you can light a candle.
I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Do we have a check? Together, please.
I give willingly, joyfully, and lovingly, knowing that God is the constant source of my supply. I give with graciousness and receive with gratitude.
Thank you all. Ron.
I'll start. Good news. We'll start with good news. We got Leo Brody CDs, New Eyes, available for purchase. See you at home.
I also have good news. You'll note I lit 2 prayer candles. And the first prayer candle was a prayer of thankfulness. My grandson graduated from high school yesterday. And the second candle is for him because tonight he leaves for Marine boot camp.
Good news, bad news, good news. If you're looking for the pony, you'll find it. I announced I got a car last week. Bad news was, it was perfect in and out, but not the engine, the transmission, everything else. So I took it back on Monday and couldn't get fixed, so they gave me the money back. Spent all day. That night I went on online thinking, again, how am I gonna find something with this little money? Yet I kept saying to myself, this and something better is gonna happen. I get caught in a scam that winds up to be Amazon auto sales, and I spent the whole next day on with Amazon to find out that yes, it is a scam. So then that was that. Well, the good news was yesterday I bought a car. And the good news is it's a great deal and I'm gonna be selling it because it has an electric scooter and lift in it. And it is going to be perfect for somebody and will bring me the extra money that the other insurance company didn't give me for my total bin.
Yeah.
So it's lemonade out of the limits that if you keep looking long enough, you'll find it.
Yeah.
My good news is, I know, woe is me, that I will be spending July and August watching my grandkids while they're out of school, which means that they don't want to go to the Boys and Girls Club, they want to spend the summer with Grandma. Shocker! And the shocker is that I agreed to it. And that means that I can cut back on my hours at the Y, which is hard on my back. And my doctor had changed my meds, or upped them, and now I'm not in as much pain, so it's giving me time to heal again.
Yes.
Well, my good news is that I found a place for Linda and I to stay in Savannah. We're leaving next week. We'll be gone for 2 weeks, and it was hard to find a place that's EMF free, but because I'm sensitive to it, but I think we landed a place that's going to work. So.
Just an information, my mom, we all love, is home right now, wisdom tooth.
Oh, no.
She still has wisdom teeth. Anyway, she goes in for oral surgery on Friday to get that taken care of. And so, all your prayers are really greatly appreciated. But that's good news because it'll be taken care of.
And the card that this couple had let me borrow for a long time is mighty mine.
Yay!
Okay. Everybody rise and stand.
Rise and shine.
Walk with each other.